The bid is already on the table. £69 million, formally submitted. Manchester United have moved first, and they have moved fast. While most clubs are still drawing up their summer shortlists, United have already placed real money in front of Sporting CP for Maxi Araujo. That is not a rumour, that is a confirmed financial action. And it tells you something important about the urgency behind everything happening at this club right now. At the exact same moment that bid landed, Barcelona were trying to acquire Marcus Rashford for €30 million. €30 million for a Manchester United player. The response from Old Trafford was immediate and absolute. There will be no negotiation. Either Barcelona pay the clause in full, or there is no deal. Not a discussion, not a counter-offer. A closed door. Two financial decisions. One going out, one holding firm. Both happening simultaneously. Both sending the same signal. Manchester United are not scrambling this summer. They are operating. And that matters enormously because the rebuild that is now underway is not a minor adjustment. With £150 million committed specifically to the midfield, with a formal bid already submitted, and with a squad evaluation already identifying which academy players could step into first-team roles, the machinery is moving right now, today. The question is not whether Manchester United will be busy this summer. The question is whether they will be smart. And that answer is still being written. The budget and the targets. The first piece of confirmed information that has come out reads as follows. Manchester United are understood to be working to a budget of around £150 million, as recently revealed, to overhaul their midfield engine room. Matheus Fernandes is a primary target outside of the top-tier picks of Elliot Anderson, Aurelian Tchouameni, and Carlos Baleba. The fact that Fernandes has been left out of Portugal's World Cup squad makes any potential move easier. Now, let me give you my analysis on this. £150 million is a significant commitment. It tells you that Ineos understands what the problem is. The midfield is not just weak, it is structurally broken. The names at the top of that list are not cheap options. Elliot Anderson at Nottingham Forest has already established himself as a serious Premier League talent. Aurelian Tchouameni at Real Madrid brings a different kind of profile, a player who controls tempo and protects the back line. And Carlos Baleba at Brighton is one of the most athletic and dynamic midfielders in the division. But what interests me most here is the mention of Matheus Fernandes as a primary target outside that top group. The word primary is important. It does not say he is a backup. It says he is a primary target in his own tier. And the note about him being left out of Portugal's World Cup squad is not just a footnote. It is a practical detail that makes a summer deal significantly more straightforward. No World Cup means no waiting, no delay. The window can move earlier if both clubs agree. The situation is that Manchester United have a clear list, a clear budget, and a clear sense of priority. That is more organisational clarity than we have seen from this club in several windows. Wayne Rooney and the wide open league. The second piece of confirmed information reads as follows. Wayne Rooney stated the Premier League next season is going to be so tight. You are obviously going to have City with a new manager, Chelsea with a new manager, Manchester United, Liverpool potentially with a new manager. So the Premier League next year will be wide open to see who wins that title. My analysis on this is straightforward. Rooney is not wrong. When you look at the landscape he is describing, you are looking at a league where almost every top club is in some form of transition. Manchester City moving on from one era, Chelsea in yet another managerial cycle, Liverpool potentially changing their own setup, and Manchester United themselves operating under Michael Carrick after the changes earlier this year. The reality for the club is that the opportunity is real. If Manchester United can get their summer business right, and I mean genuinely right, not just busy but purposeful, then they are entering a season where the title race could genuinely involve more clubs than it has in recent years. That is not a given. It is a conditional opportunity. But it is there. The Maxi Araujo bid. The third confirmed piece of information reads as follows. Manchester United have submitted a bid worth around £69 million for Maxi Araujo. My analysis. This is the first confirmed financial action in what will be a very busy summer. Manchester United submitting a bid for Araujo means this is no longer a rumour. Money has been formally offered. £69 million is a serious number. It is not a speculative low offer designed to test the water. It is a bid that communicates genuine intent. The evidence suggests that Manchester United are moving quickly and with purpose. In previous windows, the club was slow, reactive, and often overpaid simply because they ran out of time. Submitting a formal bid at this stage of the summer sends a very different message. It says the plan is already in motion. Christos, Tzolis and the scout visit. The fourth piece of confirmed information reads as follows. Manchester United are showing strong interest in Club Brugge's Christos Tzolis. Our United reportedly sent a scout to watch Tzolis in action against Union St Gilloise last weekend and are now seriously considering a move for the Greek international. My analysis. The scout visit is key detail here. Sending a scout is not a casual action. It is a deliberate step in a recruitment process that already has some momentum behind it. Manchester United are looking at a wide range of profiles, and the interest in Tzolis shows that the scouting network is active across multiple leagues, not just the Premier League. It is important to note that this is still at the rumour and interest stage, nothing confirmed beyond the scouting, but the seriousness is clear. The fact that they specifically watched him in a competitive Belgian league fixture means this is not a social media suggestion. This is a structured evaluation. The Rashford and Barcelona standoff. The fifth piece of confirmed information reads as follows. Manchester United believe that €30 million is already less than Marcus Rashford is worth in the transfer market. They will not negotiate anything with Barcelona. Either they pay the clause or no deal. My analysis. This is a fascinating piece of information because of what it tells you about Manchester United's posture in negotiations this summer. They are not in a position where they need to sell quickly and cheaply. They have a valuation, they have a clause, and they are sticking to it. Barcelona attempting to move for Rashford at €30 million is an offer that Manchester United have essentially rejected before even engaging with it. The instruction is clear. There is a clause. Pay it or walk away. That is not the language of a club desperate to move a player on at any cost. That is the language of a club that understands market value and is prepared to hold firm. The situation is that Rashford's future remains unresolved, and this standoff with Barcelona is likely to extend into the summer. But from a financial and strategic standpoint, Manchester United are handling this correctly. The Academy audition. The sixth piece of confirmed information reads as follows. Michael Carrick has been closely monitoring the Academy since taking charge in January and already has an idea of which youngsters are closest to the first team. With a bigger squad needed next season, this weekend could serve as an audition for some Academy talents. Shea Lacey, Tyler Fletcher and Jim Thwaites all remain under consideration for the game against Brighton and Hove Albion as they look to impress and push for a first-team role next season. My analysis. This detail matters more than people might initially think. Michael Carrick has been in charge since January, and in that time, he has clearly been doing more than managing results. He has been assessing depth. He has been looking at what exists within the club structure before going to the market. The fact that 3 Academy players are in genuine contention for minutes against Brighton tells you 2 things. First, Carrick is not afraid to use young players when the situation allows. Second, and perhaps more importantly, the club recognises that next season will require a bigger squad. That means internal solutions are being explored alongside external ones. That is a more sustainable approach to squad building. Altay Bayindir and the Besiktas link. The 7th piece of confirmed information reads as follows. Altay Bayindir can leave Manchester United in the summer. Besiktas remain interested, but the deal depends on the new manager after the recent change of coach. My analysis. Bayindir's situation is one of those quietly important stories that does not generate the same noise as a big transfer bid, but carries real significance for squad planning. A goalkeeper departure changes your depth chart, it changes your options, and it forces a decision about whether you bring in another keeper or promote from within. The Besiktas link is still conditional. The word can is used, not will, and the dependency on Besiktas' incoming manager adds another layer of uncertainty. So this should be categorized clearly as a possibility, not a confirmed departure. It is a story to watch, but not one to treat as done. Rooney on Ferguson versus Guardiola. The 8th piece of confirmed information reads as follows. Wayne Rooney stated, "For me, Fergie is the best, but Pep is definitely the best of his generation. I would have loved to play under him just to see how he works, tactically how he thinks about matches." My analysis. This is a moment of genuine honesty from someone who played under one of the greatest managers in football history. Rooney is not diminishing Ferguson by acknowledging Guardiola. He is contextualizing both within their own eras and their own achievements. For the purposes of the Manchester United story right now, what I take from this is the standard that the club must eventually aim to return to. Ferguson's legacy defines what greatness looks like at Old Trafford. Guardiola's tactical influence defines what modern elite football demands. The gap between where Manchester United are today and that standard is the challenge that Michael Carrick and Ineos have accepted. The Ederson warning. Now let us go deeper, because the screenshots only tell part of the story. The first area I want to break down is the situation around Ederson, the Atalanta midfielder who has been repeatedly linked with Manchester United. It is now clear that this is not a new story. Manchester United have had Ederson on their radar since at least 2024, which means the club has had considerable time to evaluate him, assess his profile, and understand his strengths and weaknesses. That is an important starting point. This is not a case of sudden interest generated by a strong season. This is a long-standing evaluation. And Ederson has had a good season at Atalanta. That much is acknowledged. But here is where the analysis has to be honest. Carlo Ancelotti has left Ederson out of the Brazil squad for the 2026 World Cup, and that decision deserves serious attention. Think about what that actually means. Brazil's midfield selections for this tournament include players who are past their best years. 2 of the midfielders selected are older than 32. One of those selected is currently playing for Al Ittihad in the Saudi Professional League. And yet Ederson, at 26 years old, the age when a midfielder is typically entering his peak years, could not displace any of them. The evidence suggests that Ancelotti, a manager with enormous experience at the highest level, has looked at the available options and decided Ederson does not meet the standard required. That is a significant signal. You cannot dismiss it. Now, there are 2 ways to read this for Manchester United specifically. The first reading is practical. Ederson will not be at the World Cup, so there is no need to wait until after the tournament to complete a deal. That simplifies the timeline. The second reading is much more concerning. No World Cup appearance also means United scouts do not get to see him perform at a major tournament under intense pressure against elite international opposition. That is a meaningful loss of evaluation opportunity. The reality for the club is this. If you are spending serious transfer money on a central midfielder, you want certainty. You want a player who has proven themselves at the highest level, a player who cannot get into a Brazil squad that includes 32-year-olds and Saudi League players is not giving you that certainty. The other midfielders who did make the Brazil squad include Bruno Guimaraes, Danilo Santos, Lucas Paqueta, and of course Casemiro himself. These are players who have consistently performed at a high level. Ederson's absence from that group is not a minor detail. It is a data point that responsible recruitment cannot ignore. The situation is that Manchester United have a long-standing interest, but the evidence of the moment does not fully support making this signing a priority. If the budget is genuinely £150 million and there are stronger options available, Ederson should not be at the top of that list. Eduardo Camavinga and the closed door. The second story that demands analytical attention is the Eduardo Camavinga situation. And I want to be very clear about what this story actually is, because the language around it matters enormously. Kamavinga is at Real Madrid. He is 22 years old. He is a French international, and he has been named among the 24 midfield targets that Manchester United are reportedly tracking ahead of their summer rebuild. Spanish media have suggested that Kamavinga could leave the Bernabeu this summer given Real Madrid's underperforming season, and the confirmed return of Jose Mourinho, which is expected to trigger a significant squad overhaul. Kamavinga would reportedly cost over £43 million. In the context of a £150 million budget, that is a realistic fee. But here is the critical piece of information that changes the entire conversation. Kamavinga has spoken publicly about his future. As quoted, he said the following: "It is always a pleasure to play at Real Madrid and a dream come true. Ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to be here. Now we have to think about winning next season." That is not the language of a player preparing to leave. That is not ambiguous. That is a player who grew up dreaming of Real Madrid and who is publicly framing his next season around winning at that club. You cannot extract genuine transfer intent from those words. The evidence suggests that pursuing Kamavinga would be pursuing a player who, at this moment, does not want to leave. And the established principle for this summer is clear. Manchester United should only target players who are genuinely motivated to come to Old Trafford. Spending significant money on a reluctant signing has not served this club well historically, and the approach of bringing in players who are truly committed to the project is the right one. There is also the additional consideration that Ineos have shown a preference this season for Premier League proven signings. The successes of Mateus Cunha and Brian Mbeumo, both players already established in the league, point to a recruitment philosophy that values proven adaptation to English football. Kamavinga would not fit that profile. The conclusion here is straightforward. Based on everything that is confirmed, Kamavinga is not a realistic target for this summer. His own words have effectively closed that door. United should redirect that attention toward targets who genuinely want to make this move happen. Names like Elliot Anderson, Carlos Baleba, Mateus Fernandes, and Sandro Tonali are all more aligned with both the budget and the recruitment philosophy. James Garner and the Anderson alternative. The third story brings us to one of the most interesting analytical questions of this summer. What happens if Manchester United cannot sign Elliot Anderson? Because the reality is that Anderson is not guaranteed. He is expected to cost £125 million. There is rival interest from Manchester City, and at that fee, with that competition, nothing is certain. On Sunday, Anderson put in a performance at Old Trafford that only increased his value. He picked up 2 assists as Manchester United won 3-2 against Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. That kind of display in front of the clubs tracking you does not make your price go down. So who is the alternative? Based on a detailed comparison of player profiles across the Premier League, the name that emerges as the closest statistical match to Anderson is James Garner, the Everton midfielder who began his career at Manchester United. Now, let me give you the facts here before I give you the analysis. Garner tops the Premier League charts for tackles. He ranks higher than Anderson for big chances created and for not losing possession. These are not minor metrics. These are exactly the attributes that define a reliable, high-performing central midfielder. The history adds an additional layer. Garner was developed at Manchester United. He was considered within the club to be the next Michael Carrick. That description tells you everything about the kind of midfielder he profiles as. A composed, technically secure, industrious presence who controls the engine room. Manchester United sold Garner for £15 million. His value has risen considerably since that decision. And this summer, the man who replaced Ralf Rangnick and is now linked with this story, Michael Carrick himself, is the manager now being asked to potentially bring Garner back. But here is where the analysis has to be honest about the complications. Garner signed a new contract to Everton. That contract removes any urgency from Everton's side to sell. They are not in a forced position. They can hold their valuation. And Garner has been one of their best players in a season where Everton are competing for European qualification. He is not surplus to requirements. He is central to what they are building. There are also questions, not about Garner's quality, but about whether re-signing him represents genuine forward momentum for Manchester United. The analysis here is clear. Garner would be a solid, reliable addition. He would improve the squad, but the evidence suggests he may not represent the step change in quality that this midfield rebuild is designed to achieve. The ideal outcome for Manchester United this summer is Anderson in the first tier and a second midfielder who brings complementary attributes. If Anderson moves to Manchester City or proves unattainable, then the decision tree becomes more complex. Garner is a legitimate option in that scenario, but he should be understood as an alternative, not a first-choice solution to the primary gap in this squad. The situation is that Manchester United have options. They have a budget. They have a list, and they have a manager in Michael Carrick who understands midfield football at a high level from his own playing career. The decisions made over the next few weeks will define whether this summer is remembered as the beginning of a genuine rebuild or another season of expensive missed opportunities. Let me bring everything together now, because individually, each of these stories tells you something, but together they paint a picture that is both exciting and demanding of patience. Manchester United are entering this summer with more structural clarity than they have had in several windows. The budget of £150 million is committed. The targets are identified at multiple tiers. A formal bid for Maxi Araujo has already been submitted. Christos Tzolis is being actively scouted. Academy players are being evaluated for first-team contributions. And on outgoing business, the club is holding firm on Rashford's valuation and managing Bayindir's situation thoughtfully. The warning signs are also real. Ederson's exclusion from Brazil's World Cup squad should give the recruitment team pause. Kamavinga has signalled his desire to remain at Real Madrid. And the Anderson pursuit, while absolutely the right priority, is not guaranteed. What the next few weeks will reveal is whether this club has the discipline to follow through on its planning, or whether it reverts to the reactive, market panicking behaviour that has defined too many of its previous transfer windows. The evidence as it stands today suggests this is a more organised, more strategic Manchester United operation than we have seen for some time. The proof will be in the decisions they make under pressure, when fees rise, when rival clubs compete, and when the easy options are gone. This is the summer that matters, and we will be here every step of the way to break it down for you properly. If you found this analysis valuable, please subscribe to Adam United Analyst. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Manchester United will land their top targets this summer? Do you think Garner is the right alternative to Anderson? Let me know exactly what you think. I read every comment, and I will see you in the next video.